When we talk about championships in pro wrestling, we're usually referring to championship belts, but occasionally that's not the case. When Progress Wrestling formed in 2011, their singles championship was first symbolised by a staff, and their tag team championships were two halves of a shield that fitted together like yin and yang. Thankfully, these didn't last though. A more modern example would be the New Japan KOPW Championship, which began as a trophy before being replaced by a belt in December 22. This video, however, is about a championship around for a little over a year that was represented by a presumably empty briefcase. What's more, the company it belonged to no longer existed. The title I'm referring to is the XPW European Championship. XPW is a much broader topic than is relevant here, but as a brief introduction, it was founded in July 1999 by Rob Black, who was also well known in the porn industry. Black fancied himself a promoter and hoped to assist in bringing ECW to the West Coast, but was turned down by Paul Heyman, leading him to create his own company to be a sort of ECW competitor. Towards the end of XPW's original run, they formed a working relationship with UK-based Frontier Wrestling Alliance, which was formed in '99, but began as the much more locally minded Fratton Wrestling Association in '93. FWA would become known for its US-influenced presentation of storylines that many UK promotions weren't doing yet. Following XPW's closure, FWA would go on to work with Ring of Honor, with the likes of Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles and Bryan Danielson, still under a mask as the American Dragon, working for the FWA. This even resulted in a co-promotion, with FWA and ROH presenting Frontiers of Honor in May 2003, and a sequel in 2006. As best I can tell, the seemingly odd pairing of FWA and XPW came about through FWA wanting a US working relationship. What makes this relationship so odd is that the two had very different products. XPW was known for its wild, over-the-top violence, and FWA was nothing of the sort really. While they did have hardcore matches, the overall product was more geared towards fans of all ages, a sort of something for everyone type approach. Now let's talk about the one and only ever XPW European Champion, the Wonder Kid Johnny Storm. Johnny started training to wrestle in the early 90s, having his first matches for NWA Hammerlock, the same school that produced Doug Williams and Zack Sabre Jr. He would wrestle mainly for Hammerlock before arriving in FWA and other promotions in '99. In 2002, at age 25, Johnny would make his first trip to America, competing for CZW, Ring of Honor, Heartland Wrestling, and crucially XPW. His cruiserweight style made him a perfect fit against wrestlers like Jerry Lynn, Brian Kendrick, and his longtime friend Jody Fleisch, who was also touring US Indies around this time. Johnny and Jody would often be opponents against each other, having put together a match they could tour the Indies with, long before shows were as accessible as they are today through streaming. The match they had planned was designed to allow them both to shine, leaving a lasting impression on whatever local crowd they were in front of. Johnny Storm would defeat Jerry Lynn in the finals of a tournament at the Broxbourne Civic Hall on March 16, 2003, to be crowned the first XPW European Champion. Unfortunately though, XPW would run its final event that time on March 8th, just over a week earlier. Whether XPW's closure around this time was the reason, or whether the physical belt hadn't been completed in time, either way, it didn't make its way to Hertfordshire in time for the tournament final, and so Johnny actually won and would continue to carry a black briefcase. You see, to the best of my remembrance from watching FWA at the time, Johnny never actually opened the briefcase. According to the thought experiment of Erwin Schrödinger, the contents of the briefcase are equally both there and not there until the case is opened. Welcome to yet another philosophy channel. And yes, I know the full theory is more complicated than this, I'm just messing around frankly. As the title was made in conjunction with FWA, Johnny would continue to defend the black briefcase, apparently containing the XPW European title, for a little over a year, long after XPW had closed, until it was quietly retired in mid-2004. I guess you could say that Storm was before his time, as Money in the Bank wouldn't become a thing until WrestleMania 21 the following year, thus continuing the tradition of briefcases being carried to the ring. In a 2005 shoot interview, Johnny Storm would note that XPW had ambitions of expanding internationally, explaining the FWA link from their side. He'd been wrestling for them in America for a few months by this point, so it was planned a while in advance that he was to be the first European champion. Johnny would defend the case mostly in FWA, but also in Germany-based WXW. He would defend mostly against imported talent, such as Juventud Guerrera, Super Crazy, and Just Incredible among others, which did a lot to raise Storm's profile, working with and beating former ECW names. As of September 2023, Johnny Storm continues to be active in the ring, some 28 years since his first matches. Now that XPW is back, maybe we might see him reactivate the briefcase, whether there's a belt in it or not, someday. Thank you for watching yet another wrestling channel. If you enjoyed this, please comment, like or subscribe.